I never thought the night would turn out the way it did. Fridays were supposed to be my safe haven. Just me, a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, and whatever Netflix decided to recommend. It was one of those evenings meant for forgetting the week and staying invisible. Living alone in my quiet apartment felt like both a blessing and a curse. But Evan, my new neighbor, had a knack for disrupting that peace the moment he moved in. He wasn't just attractive, he was downright stunning. Tall, athletic, with messy blonde hair, a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and a mischievous grin that seemed out of place for someone living right across the hall from me. I'd pegged him as one of those effortlessly charming straight guys who coasted through life. That idea cemented itself when I saw he had a girlfriend. Still, no matter how much my brain tried to keep it strictly friendly, there was something about the way he carried himself. The way he walked with that relaxed confidence, tossing me playful winks that sent butterflies to places they shouldn't be fluttering. I knew he wasn't available in every sense of the word, but sometimes, attraction doesn't play by the rules of logic. I didn't expect anything from him, not a chance. Then, that fateful night, he knocked on my door. When I opened the door, there he was, standing there in a gray hoodie and worn-out jeans, looking both troubled and somehow even more gorgeous. "Hey," he scratched the back of his neck, like he was unsure about something. "Mind if I come in for a bit?" I hesitated for maybe half a second, but who was I kidding? I stepped aside, and he walked in without waiting for a proper invitation. He walked past me, his scent fresh, with a hint of cologne lingering in the air between us. I shut the door behind him, already knowing this night wouldn't go the way I'd planned. "Everything okay?" I asked, closing the door behind him. He sighed, grabbing a beer from my fridge like we did this sort of thing all the time. "Not really. Kayla and I had a fight. Again." There was the dreaded girlfriend drama. I nodded sympathetically, trying not to let it show how every mention of her name made my stomach twist. "Sorry to hear that," I muttered, taking a long sip from my wine glass. He made himself comfortable on the couch, cracking open a beer and taking a sip from it. I poured myself another glass of wine, sitting down next to him but keeping a little distance between us. The silence felt heavy, not quite awkward, but charged with something unspoken. I don't know, man, sometimes I wonder if I'm even in the right relationship." He ran a hand through his hair, sighing. I looked at him, surprised by the raw honesty in his words. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he hesitated, then laughed quietly, almost self-deprecating. "Ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Like you're doing what's expected, not what you actually want?" I swallowed hard, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Yeah, I know that feeling." Our eyes met, and suddenly the room felt smaller. His gaze lingered a second too long, and I could feel the shift between us like standing on the edge of something dangerous and thrilling all at once. Without thinking, I leaned back slightly, giving him space to pull away if he wanted. But instead, he moved closer. He kissed me. It wasn't hesitant or unsure. It was rough, intense, and filled with a kind of desperation I hadn't expected. His lips crushed against mine, and the heat of it slammed into me like a tidal wave. I gasped, but he didn't stop. If anything, my surprise seemed to spur him on, his hands gripping my shoulders as if anchoring himself to me. For a moment I forgot how to breathe, forgot that this was my straight neighbor with a girlfriend. All I knew was the taste of his mouth on mine, the way his stubble scraped against my skin, and the heat pooling low in my belly. Then, suddenly, I pulled away, gasping for air. My heart was racing, my mind a blur of disbelief and desire. I stumbled to my feet and walked to the dining table, gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My breaths came in shallow bursts, my pulse drumming in my ears. "What the hell are we doing?" I whispered, mostly to myself. Before I could gather my thoughts, Evan was behind me. I felt the warmth of his body pressing close, the subtle brush of his hoodie against my bare arms. His hand slid around my waist, pulling me back against him, and I shivered as his lips found the curve of my neck. "Don't think," he murmured against my skin, his voice low and rough. "Just let me?" His kisses trailed slowly along my neck, each one sending a jolt of heat through me. I gripped the edge of the dining table tighter, trying to steady myself as his hand slid under my shirt, fingers grazing my skin. The touch was electric, light, and teasing, but with a promise of something more. I moaned softly, unable to stop myself, and that seemed to ignite something in him. His hands roamed freely now, pushing my shirt higher, exposing more skin to his hungry mouth. The feel of him, solid, warm, relentless, was overwhelming, and all I could do was surrender to it. We didn't make it far from the table. In a blur of motion, my shirt was gone, followed quickly by his. He turned me around and kissed me again, harder this time, as if he couldn't get enough. My back hit the cool surface of the table, and in the next moment, he was on me, his body pinning mine against the wood, his kisses feverish and demanding, leaving no space between us as we gave in completely to the passion that ignited right there on the table. Everything about it felt reckless, forbidden, and so damn right. His hands moved with purpose, stripping away the last of our clothes, leaving us bare and breathless in the dim light of my apartment. What started at the dining table quickly spilled over into the bedroom. We moved together like we'd been waiting for this moment all our lives. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered moan building towards something unstoppable. The way he touched me, like he was discovering parts of himself he hadn't known existed, left me trembling beneath him. He wasn't gentle, but he was careful, as if afraid of breaking whatever fragile thing had sparked between us. We spent the night tangled in each other, lost in a haze of need and want that neither of us could resist. And when we finally collapsed into bed, exhausted and sated, he pulled me close, his arm draped lazily over my waist as we drifted into sleep. I woke to the soft light of morning filtering through the curtains and the steady rhythm of Evan's breathing beside me. His arm was still around me, his body warm against mine. For a moment, everything felt perfect, like we belonged here, in this quiet bubble where the rest of the world didn't exist. But then reality crept in, bringing with it the weight of what we'd done. I shifted slightly, and Evan stirred, blinking awake. His eyes were hazy with sleep, his hair a mess of golden waves that begged to be touched. "Morning," I whispered, unsure of what else to say. He gave me a lazy smile, one that made my heart ache in the best way. "Morning." For a few seconds we just lay there, the silence between us comfortable but tinged with something unresolved. And then, to my surprise, he leaned in and kissed me, a soft, lingering kiss that felt like a promise. "I don't regret it," he murmured against my lips. The knot of anxiety in my chest loosened at his words. "Neither do I." The days after that night felt surreal. Evan and I didn't have the "what are we" conversation. We just existed. He spent more time in my place than his own. Every night with him felt like a discovery. Of him, of me, of this fragile, unexpected connection that had blossomed between us. He hadn't gone back to Kayla since the fight, and from the way he talked, it seemed like things were over between them. But a part of me still felt uneasy, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was too perfect, and life had a way of pulling the rug out from under you just when you got comfortable. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I saw the first crack in our little bubble. Evan and I had been lying in bed that morning, limbs tangled under the sheets. He kissed me lazily, his hand tracing soft circles on my back. And for a moment, everything felt perfect. I was lying on the couch, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, when a text came in that made my heart sink. It was from a mutual acquaintance in the building. "Just saw your neighbor Evan with Kayla at Romano's. Thought they were done?" Looked pretty cozy to me. My stomach twisted painfully, jealousy and fear crashing over me like a tidal wave. Without thinking, I threw on a jacket and headed toward the restaurant. Romano's was a cozy little Italian place, just a few blocks away, popular for date nights and proposals. And as I walked faster, heart hammering in my chest, my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if he'd gone back to her? What if everything between us had just been a way for him to work out his confusion? When I arrived, I saw them through the front window. There was Kayla, looking radiant in a sitting across from Evan. She was smiling, leaning closer to him, her hand resting on his. And then, just as I stood there, frozen on the sidewalk, she kissed him. It wasn't a friendly peck. It was the kind of kiss you give someone when you want them to remember exactly what they're giving up. Evan sat there, clearly stunned, not pulling away fast enough for my liking. My heart shattered in my chest, jealousy turning my vision hazy. I'd been stupid to think this thing between us was anything more than a fling. Of course, he'd go back to her. She was safe, familiar. I was just a distraction. I turned on my heel and walked away, the lump in my throat threatening to choke me. Evan showed up at my door that evening, looking confused and a little desperate. I opened it reluctantly, arms crossed over my chest, doing my best to look indifferent. "You want to tell me what that was?" I asked, my voice cold. He blinked. "What are you talking about?" "At Romano's," I snapped. "I saw you with her. I saw her kiss you." Evan's brows furrowed in confusion for a moment, and then understanding dawned on his face. "Wait, you saw that? Jesus. That wasn't what it looked like." "Really?" I said bitterly. "Because it looked a lot like you making up with your girlfriend." "She's not my girlfriend anymore," he said firmly. "We met for lunch because she wanted to talk. She apologized for the fight and, well, yeah, she kissed me. But it wasn't mutual." I scoffed. "Sure looked mutual from where I was standing." Evan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Look, I didn't plan on seeing her, okay? She asked to meet, and I thought I owed her that much. But I didn't kiss her back. The second she did it, I told her it was over. I told her I was seeing someone else." His words hit me like a punch to the chest. "You told her about me?" "Yeah," he said, stepping closer. "I told her about us. I didn't want there to be any confusion." I stared at him, my anger slowly giving way to something softer. "You really did that?" He nodded. "Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing most of the time, but the one thing I know for sure is that I want this. I want you." Before I could stop myself, I threw my arms around him, burying my face in his chest. His arms wrapped tightly around me, holding me like he never wanted to let go. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I saw her, and I thought." "I get it," he murmured, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "But you don't have to worry about her. I'm here with you. That's all that matters." We stood like that for a long moment, the tension between us melting away, replaced by a warmth I hadn't known I was missing. Eventually, he pulled back just enough to tilt my chin up, his eyes searching mine. "You okay?" I nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. "Yeah, I am now." Evan grinned, and then he kissed me, soft and slow like a promise. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments and late-night conversations. Evan moved his things into my apartment little by little, until one day it just made sense for him to stay. Kayla, to her credit, didn't cause any trouble. She seemed to accept that things were truly over between her and Evan. And though I still felt a twinge of guilt about the whole situation, I knew it wasn't my burden to carry. Evan and I didn't try to label what we had. We just took it one day at a time, figuring things out as we went. Some days were easy, filled with laughter and lazy mornings in bed. Others were harder, marked by doubts and insecurities. But through it all, we had each other, and that was enough. One evening, as we lay on the couch, Evan's arm draped over my shoulders, I glanced up at him. "You know," I said, "I never thought this would happen. You and me." He smiled, brushing a thumb across my cheek. "Yeah, life's weird like that." I leaned in, kissing him softly, feeling the familiar warmth spread through my chest. And as his arms tightened around me, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Because sometimes, the most unexpected things turn out to be exactly what you needed all along. If you've found value in this story, please subscribe to my channel for more. Thank you for listening.